All right, what is going on? I don't really know how this works. Okay, because if I share my screen, that's not the right one. This one. And now I go over here. Oh, I can just change the size of this window. And then I can figure this shit out. Okay, so it automatically does it. Okay, sweet. All right, that's all I wanted to know, really. All right, well, it's only been 21 seconds. Okay, hello, welcome. I was just making sure this was working. My name is AI. That's the AE symbol. I'm sharing my screen so I can show you everything. So yeah, this is my name right here. AI. We call it AI because it's like from this. I like Grimes. Well, more specifically, I like Miss Anthropocene. Anthropocene? I don't know. So you can see my mouse, right? So yeah, so it's like X and then AI, like how you said the letter A, then I, right? Okay. So that's XAI, right? So that's how that name works. Okay, so why do I do? I mean, that's pretty weird. So I guess I gotta let you know about why. I had a post about this. I have a tendency to overshare. So if you try to figure it out, you can probably figure it out. Plus, shout out to my Langley Gang audience members. Anybody who is, trying to figure shit out, knows what's going on there. Anyway, so Missing Anthropocene, it came to me in a special time in my life, and I just really like this album. So if I can just start off my whole live stream career by telling you that Miss Anthropocene is awesome, then that's fine. So to try and pivot most quickly as possible into what I said the stream was about, I was inspired by Miss Anthropocene that, how should I say this? It evokes what I call a grand style. It's not just what I call it, but it's a term, grand style, that I also learned to be associated with Friedrich Nietzsche. And so, I mean, basically. I wonder if I can get this to be, Anyway, so yeah, Friedrich Nietzsche. Grimes, Friedrich Nietzsche. It's gonna be an issue. But on this topic of is it gonna be problematic? Shout out to Anna KW, who recently stepped down as one of the Hegelian e-girls. But we'll see. I mean, everybody's got to be taking a step back, right? Grimes or Claire-Elise Boucher, as you know, has even taken a social media step back. So I have certainly taken many steps back in my day. I guess maybe people were waiting on me to take a step forward. So here we go. Let's jump into experimental unit. So experimental unit is my own attempt at a grand style. But there really doesn't need to be a grand style. So actually, I didn't put this in the description, but I think actually a really good place to start is with the most recent post on my Substack, which is here, experimentalunit.substack.com. And so this is from my August 1st show. It's fun because my next show on August 22nd is going to be on my birthday. So we're getting that started. Anywho, principally for this, right? This is what I'm trying to say in terms of like, what is experimental unit? Is it my response to Hegelian e-girls? I mean, I came up with this like years ago. I've been writing about it since December. So like, no, it's not a response to Hegelian e-girls. It's a response to everything, right? This is like my idea for a symbolic response or whatever to stuff. There's like a lot of philosophy to get into, but the point for me is that the idea that it is a response is misleading, because what it is that I'm trying to do is always changing. And principally, I'm trying to work not necessarily work with other people, but enjoyably influence and be influenced by other people. Make my way through the world. We're changing things up. We're having a good time. Anyway, and so the way that works, this gets back to Hegelian e-girls in a way, because it's not really that there's just one way things are, and it's like, oh, we need to all just believe this, and this is just right, or something of this nature. So that's where Wonder Twin Powers Activate comes in. So basically the idea is, I guess you could say it's art, and then again, we have to confront this thing, because there's don't notice how I also freaking, yeah, somebody else uses Yahoo, which I don't quite understand. But anyway, so we're just noting, right? We started off with my enjoyment of Miss Anthropocene, and we mentioned the Hegelian e-girls who have been compared to the Red Scare podcast proprietors. Where was I going with that? Oh, I heard from somebody that at their Hegelian e-girl event, they mentioned Julius Evola. So, I mean, we're just like getting in trouble, right? That's like basically the issue. It's probably even worse for me compared to them, because obviously, but that's fine. We gotta bite the bullet on this, right? And so one thing for me, just in terms of my style that I'm doing right now, that I just to talk about my mindset behind it, I feel like what to say. A lot of the academic people, like this goes for like C. Derek Varn as well. I like listening to C. Derek Varn. He's one of my, or they are. I like to call everybody they. I'll explain that at some point. Anyway, I really appreciate C. Derek Varn. They are one of the people that I like to listen to the most. But still, there's this very like far removed thing. Like Derek will start like talking down to their audience, and it's just like, yo, like we're all just flawed creatures. Like this is where I don't know if it's like a Christian. It's not exactly a Christian thing, but it's like we're all sinners. Is basically what I'm saying. It's like, come on, like there's basically this issue of fronting and being stodgy and like having to appear normal, and being so afraid of what everybody's gonna think. And it's so easy to be like, oh, you just don't care what everybody thinks. It's like, no, it's not that you don't care what people think. It's just that you like, if you're going to be provocative and you're going to do your own thing, then you gotta freaking you gotta know you're gonna get in trouble. Basically, there's hot water. You gotta freaking deal to swim through it. And that's where they say honesty is the best policy. That's where I think having a good quality of intention, or what's even most important, is like, that's why I say like you learn to want to love. Anyway, it's like try to get better, but like we got to keep our feet moving. Like if you're a lineman in football, you just keep your feet moving, just keep moving. But we got to be talking about stuff like this. So this has all been very vague, but that's fine. The overall point I was trying to say introductorily about experimental unit is that everything that I'm doing right now takes the form of Wonder Twin Powers Activate. So the point of what I'm trying to do is not to like convince you to do something or to do anything in particular or believe anything in particular. That's not like that's not part of what I want, right? What I want is just to like be interesting, or like to be a catalyst, sort of. And I'm interested in connecting with people, but like not necessarily with everybody or whatever. So like, sometimes you might just listen to a little bit of this and move on your way. But then the little bit that you heard of it might make a little bit of an impact on your life. And that would be freaking amazing from my point of view as an artist. I mean, I'm not just an artist, but, from the point of view that, it feels good to get your message across, to influence other people's lives. And especially if you influence, this is a big thing, I think, for me in general. If you influence somebody else's life, like how they live their life, you just made a huge difference. And that's the kind of thing reminds me of like a weird kind of story where, you're talking about like the romance of inventing this little thing. Like imagine inventing the straw, paper wrapper that a straw comes in that allows us all to like have individual straws. And like, does that really need to exist? Like, whatever. But like, say you're, the friend of the person who invented that, and that person is like feeling low about themselves, and you're sitting there being like, no, like you made a big difference in people's lives because like people, even if it's not about like influencing somebody's philosophy or their outlook or anything, but like you are changing people's lives by introducing those straws. And notably, it's not for good or bad. I think this sort of technological and sort of charming example is really good because I mean it starts with a straw. It's just sort of like, okay, whatever. But I mean, there's also a lot of industry that goes into the straw, right? So like, did the person who invented that do a good thing or a bad thing? Like they gave a lot of people jobs, right? But this could also be categorized under the like sort of thing that really shouldn't exist. It's kind of a waste of resources, or like it's not utilitarian if you look at it a certain way. But then, you think about it in terms of like, well, what did that allow in terms of all the consumer experiences? Like people saved time, like what it allowed for, this sort of like drinking with a straw thing to catch on. I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but the point is Wonder Twin powers goddamn activate, right? So the point of that is just like, the point of this is not to like convince you to be a partisan of experimental unit, although you should definitely also be concerned that I would use reverse psychology, right? But, there's just a lot to experimental unit. Like anyway, doesn't matter. Point of what I was just trying to say is this is just supposed to be like materials, like when Dude Bro writes a book and it's like notes toward blah blah blah. It's like you're supposed to take this and run with it, basically. And if you're inspired by it, you have some feedback, I'd love to hear it. So anyway, where does experimental unit come from? This is an interesting idea. So I mean, if you look at experimental unit, we have an archive here. So I put the first Substack article up on January 8th, January 9th. But I came up with this idea about a year earlier, maybe I don't know, about a year and a half. But yeah, it evolved out of a really long sort of podcasting creative experience that I've been doing. I also do a radio show on WRFG Atlanta. So I've been doing this, which has just been sort of like keeping me creative. Just it's not WRFG.com. It's just been keeping me creative for like a long time. There I am. Yeah, so LOL, Experimental Council, right? So here we are. So yeah, I've been having the show Solution Space. I've been doing that since 2018. And I found out about that because I went to college and then I got suspended. And then I came back. Didn't wind up going back to that college. Came back to Atlanta and did Occupy Atlanta things. And then, I should have kept up that one. So then I did Occupy Atlanta things and met somebody at Food Not Bombs who volunteered with WRFG. So that person's name is Brian Sherman. People know who that is in Atlanta, affiliated with WRFG, which is just really funny given all the places we'll go and the people we'll see. But anyways, so yeah, I've been doing this. So I did that and spun that off into a podcast. So I started serializing that on Spotify, but then I would just sort of record ones into my phone, really. And they would go on for a really long time. And it was a weird mix. And it's just sort of what you're hearing right now. Although this is probably more sanitized because when your face is on it, you self-censor probably a little bit better. But that's fine. what else am I freaking talking about? So where did this come from? So I've been doing this, and then I've also been interested in stuff like Jean Baudrillard. So I presented at the Applied Baudrillard Studies conference in 2018, and that link is in the description, and so is this one. These are like two of my papers. And this one is called Transcommunism in the Transpolitical Age. And this is what I read at the conference. So I guess at a certain point, it would be good just to make a video where I read that. But I'm trying to think whether I should just do that right now, but I'm not going to. Okay. But so transcommunism is a term that I have kept working with. So here on experimental, what did I do? What did I do, Beer? So here in the archive, what was I talking about? Frickin' transcommunism, right? So transcommunism, we have some writing that I've done on it more recently. Like all my writing is just like all the talking that I do is very scattershot. It's sort of like Donald Trump or something. But like, you'll just have to be patient with me. I'm trying to figure out how to work with people. It's like pretty difficult because I'm like probably super autistic or something. But anyway, that's where just like, we just try to be optimistic, and we're running, Wonder Twin Powers Activate protocol. So in case you find this interesting, that's just the idea here. Anyway, so transcommunism is still part of experimental unit. So this is just a foregrounding material. So I've been interested in Jean Baudrillard. What does Jean Baudrillard represent, right? So it's basically like shit's fucked up in the world. What are we going to do about it, right? And then what are our concepts, right? So jumping over to experimental unit here. So here's the link that has core text. So if you do core text and then oh no, I wish you could search by oldest. But anyway, so I forget what this means. This was a cool thing though. And then there's some official colors for us. Like, so the big one is purple, gray, and orange. That's why it's like in our logo and everything. But anyways, concept of operations, I think, is very important, because whether you're talking about like Baudrillard, right, is coming out of or is really influenced by Marxism, right, or any sort of philosophical tendency you can also put in this. But concept of operations is also something that can be applied to corporations, the military, governments, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I typically think of them as in war because they're warfighting concepts. Where was that coming from? Basically that we're tying together, like, what is Baudrillard all about? Like, why am I interested in Baudrillard? And it's like, it has something to do with like, you're trying to address the strife that there is in the world, but you are willing to let go of the concepts people have previously tried to articulate these things in. In particular, you're willing to let go, like, even though you're sitting here wanting to be like, yeah, we should all be nice to each other, and like everybody should get what they need or whatever. But Baudrillard in particular, not so much need. Maybe we wouldn't say that, but like, just totally being like sort of like communist, right? In the sense of like, wanting shit to be nice, right? Being utopian, right? Like things could be nice for everybody, basically. But being willing to let go of this idea of capitalism, for example, or class struggle or something like this. Actually, it was recently a thing in Twitter, right, where Xi Jinping, I don't know if it was from recently, but he had a quote where he was talking about how class struggle was not like the central thing or something like that. And like, none of this is so easily said. Like, if it's not class struggle, what is it? I mean, that's something that we need to talk about forever, basically. So that's, again, Wonder Twin Powers Activate. Like, it's not where I'm telling you, I know what the answer is. It's like, this certain discourse is stalled out. My own this is again like where I would distinguish myself from somebody like Anna KW. Like she also just reads a lot more, or they also just read a lot more than me, similar to C. Derek Varn. So like maybe they're just like better at talking and they have better points, and whatever. I'm just like trying to ask them to be mediocre. But I think it's nice to sort of present it in a kind of folksy way. I think Varn has that sometimes, but sometimes not. Anyway, I forget where I was going now, but yeah. So yeah, not class struggle, and in particular, this intersects with some key. I need to write a paper on this, or a screed, if you will. But there's this guy called Carl Schmitt, who I think is a big catalyst right now. I mean, there's been talk about how the Chinese like Carl Schmitt, and even in America, like people are always talking about it, like whether or not like some people are just enemies, and they like it's basically because this idea that somebody is your enemy, it's sort of exterminationist. If the idea is like, they're just a threat to you forever, then, they need to be got rid of, basically. So that's kind of an issue. Oh, and also this continues on with the theme of, problematic things are happening. Because Carl Schmitt was associated, obviously, with the Nazi Party. Where's it going with this? I don't remember why I brought up Carl Schmitt, but in general, I think Carl Schmitt's really important because for me, it's basically about the idea that the law is a ruse, where the rule of law is not really in effect. There's always a state of exception, a state of emergency. So that's why now I can just pivot. I'm getting myself all flustered. But if you just start with, the first few things to know, right? So the first one, experimental unit, comes from the military. But then, like, if you look at XU is not a warfighting organization, right? Oh, I think I have here's the link. So I found this. I was really interested in like the philosophy of war. I was looking into it, really interested in things like the nature of war. Yeah. Like the idea of war is like a conflict of wills. But then, you like, if you think about the will in terms of Nietzsche or Schopenhauer is really interesting. Because it basically opens up the question of like, what is a given person's will? Why we get for granted that some people want some things, some people want other things. They don't align, and so now these people are enemies. It does actually loop back around to Carl Schmitt because for example, again with Marxism, I've been arguing with people about this like fucking on Reddit. Just recently about like, they were like, I'm sorry, do you think the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, or the workers and the capitalists, right? Do you think the workers and the capitalists like share interests? Oh my God. And like, I guess officially, right? Like that's really bad, right? Like is it class collaborationism? I don't think it's so necessarily. Class collaborationism is just like badly named because like what people mean by that is one that favors a certain group as opposed to really being in the interest of everybody. But anyway, anyway, that's related to Carl Schmitt, right? Because it's like you're setting up that there are these groups of people that are just set up, and they just have different wills, right? They have different interests. And because of that, they are enemies forever. And so you can look at it in terms of this politics. You can look at it in terms of religion as well. Like Jews and Muslims and Christians and, Hindus. This is where even the names of the religions, you're already getting yourself in trouble, right? Like, first of all, I don't actually really like to say the Jews. I typically don't do that. But anyway, like if you're looking at the Israel-Palestine thing, like the Al-Aqsa Mosque, right? Where it's like, you have Jewish people who, maybe they want to build a temple there, but there's already a mosque there, right? So the way we set it up is that people have different wills. you know, and like there is not anything that can satisfy, you know, both of them at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And so there's going to be fighting about this forever. And it's like, well, is that true? Is that the nature? Like, maybe that is. But then the question is, what's the resolution? And is the resolution that you have to exterminate or basically get rid of, humiliate, disempower, you know, emasculate, castrate, you know, whatever sort of freaking word you want to use, because this is like, you know, the territory where it's that scene from Apocalypse Now. Sorry, I'm rubbing my eyes so much, but like it's that scene from Apocalypse Now where Dude Bro is saying that, you know, we drop napalm on like little babies, but then like you can't write fuck on a helicopter because that's obscene. It's like, so that quote in general has ruined me, because like if you get into looking at a lot of the things that I've posted, a lot of it is problematic. I use bad words. But it's just like, yes, I mean the terms of like what is happening right now are all out of proportion. I think that cultural experimentation and provocation are called for. So where to go with this? Oh, I was talking about, you know, I'm interested in the nature of warfare, this nature of wills, right? So in particular, like already I'm coming out of, you know, basically just being a Baudrillard stan, because all that really happened was a teacher in high school lent me a book called The Society of the Spectacle. And then I got into Baudrillard like pretty soon after. But yeah, I read this book when I was like 17. And then I was like, oh, like this is like smarter than anything that I'm being shown. And funnily enough, it's also like counselist in the end. So I also wind up being a form of like, it's basically like you do just have to start basically with like coordinated decision making, starting from the individual level, like being able to get your own game face on is a good idea. But then also being able to reimagine your project given your current capabilities, I think is also very important, because it's like, it's not that you're not good enough. It's that, you know, what it is that you're good enough for, maybe you're not happy enough with yet, in part because, you know, that's where we need like validation, right? Well, like nobody's telling you that like what you're doing is good, or maybe you're not even sure, right? We're trying to do, I want to be able to keep going back to Wonder Twin Powers activate, but I think I got rid of it, but screw that. I want to get back to it again. It's funny. I felt like I was on a roll connecting with the audience, but that's exactly like Wonder Twin Powers, Ma frickin' activate, right? Like we're all hungry for that, right? In terms of like, yeah, I know I'm not ready. It's not just like I need to sit here and polish my shit for a million fucking years until it's perfect, and then like convince like somebody with $1 million to give me $1 million or whatever. Like, you know, you just gotta, as I said before, with the football with the linemen, you just gotta keep your feet moving. And, you know, if that means that it's not polished, right? Sorry, it's not whatever, right? Anyway, so Society Spectacle. And then I got into Baudrillard. So coming out of Baudrillard, getting into this thing with the will, I wasn't as into especially Schopenhauer yet. But what I really like about Schopenhauer is that Schopenhauer combines you know, like philosophy, but he's like at least conversant with Hinduism, right? I've recently appreciating more and more. Hinduism is like a problematic term or whatever, so sorry. But I hope this microphone works, by the way. It says it's using my microphone. Anyway, so like not that he perfectly understands it. It can be problematic or whatever. Like but then again, you know, who's to say, right? What's the proper way to treat Hinduism or whatever you want to call, you know, the religions of the Indian subcontinent or whatever you want to call that, Bharat, whatever. I just enjoy, as I said before, pansyncretism. I don't know if maybe I didn't say that on this stream. I deleted one. But, you know, I like pansyncretism. So just to explain what that is, there's this thing called syncretism, which is Okay, so another thing, I was just although this is also funny, like James Lindsay hates nominalism. So this is where, it's like, am I on the far right or no, I want nominalism. You have to have nominalism. I feel like that's not right. James Lindsay loves to talk shit about nominalism. They should have like posts from X and stuff like that. It's probably this. Mathematical whatever, making a case for it. Justify. Well, that's not enough. Nominalism is the enemy. Oh, this is a fucking comment. Okay. Without essentialism, what is the woke are advocating? Back to Aristotle, essentialism is the only safeguard against ethical and logical relativism. This is a funny thing. Relativism. Yeah, it's funny. This is such a huge boogeyman. Relativism and nominalism. Well, anyway, I'm trying to say that so I was starting to read about syncretism because I'm interested in merging belief systems. And even if, this person wants to talk about essentialism, like a Christian essence, like spoiler alert, like what we call Christianity is a form of syncretism and building things together. So, you're not outside this process. But again, as I said before, we're going back to Wonder Twin powers activate. Whatever you take out of this is fine. Like, I'm not trying to, make you afraid or something like that. So the reason why I went to nominalism, though, is because it was saying the definition. Syncretism is the practice of combining different beliefs in various schools of thought. Syncretism involves the merging or assimilation of several originally discrete traditions, especially in the theology and mythology of religion, thus asserting an underlying unity and allowing for an inclusive approach to other faiths. So it gives you an idea of what it's talking about, but it's hugely problematic. Like, I swear by Wikipedia, like, just so you know, like, I think it's so cool. Like, these are the type of articles where you can just learn so much from Wikipedia. Especially if you look over here, freaking nominalism. You got Indian philosophy. Like, this is my fucking wheelhouse right here. Okay, the fact that all this stuff is like in conversation with each other, and then you can just learn about so much. And then go over here, freaking animism, and then you can go over here. I think they have one for. Yeah, traditional African religions. I didn't know if it was that or spirituality or something like that. Like, you can learn so much, and then, like, we're basically building all of this stuff together. Like, it's basically like all of the cultural stuff that everybody's been doing is like you're making Legos, and now we want to have like a giant Lego set that has everybody's pieces, right? You want to have a crossover episode where everybody gets to have fun, right? Like, that's the idea. That's the idea of experimental unit. So I'm vibing right now because if you go back to first few things to know, right? I guess I should read all of these like on camera and just go through them. I mean, that could be what this is for. I mean, I'm not going to read this part because it doesn't matter. So again, I guess I didn't exactly explain this, but experimental unit comes from the military. But I go on to say that this is not about doing war, okay? But I was just inspired by the term experimental unit because it's like a new collection of individuals and technology which is deployed in order to try and learn about new capabilities, but you can't afford to just train in a sandbox environment. So you have to be doing the task So you're fighting a war, basically. So like notable experimental units include the ones where the tank was invented, right? The tank is a new kind of technology. Or if you think about if people get introduced to horses or, artillery or cannons or bows and arrows, like there's a lot of trial and error that goes into figuring out how to best use these various technologies. But in the meantime, as you're figuring it out, people are dying on the freaking battlefield, right? And the course of history is changing. So I think that is a very cool idea. And another aspect of it, this is also getting back into the whole, we're like being problematic, right? I am not a warrior, but I don't denounce anyone, right? Like I don't denounce warriors. Like the way that I thought about this in a funny way, like it's not that I believe we all co-created the world, right? So the whole question of like my cosmology and my religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs or whatever is like a whole fucking thing. That's why like this is just going to go on forever. Like I can just talk forever. Anyway, where is it going with that? My religious beliefs. I forget. Wonder Twin Powers activate experimental unit. So we're not doing war. Oh, right. Here's what I was going to say. Like, if you denounce something, if you condemn something, you're basically saying, in my opinion, you're basically saying God made a mistake. That's because there's this thing. There's this thing, like, what should I say about this? I get really worked up about this idea, right? Because people are always on about this. Is God the author? I mean, people are not always on about this, but rarely is the question asked, is God the author of sin, right? Not many people are asking where the Civil War came from, whether our kids can read, or whether God is the author of sin. He's got to say no, right? Just to make sure. I don't want to like... will of decree, will of command. Okay. The doer of a wicked thing, it would be reproach and blasphemy to suppose God to be author of sin. Okay. Willing that sin exists in the world is not the same as sinning. Does not commit sin in willing that there be sin. God has established a world in which sin will indeed be necessarily come to pass by God's permission, but not by his positive agency. Like, I think that's fucking bullshit, okay? Like, I think this is fucking blasphemy because it's basically saying that the glory of God is not worth whatever the fuck God wants to do. And that's where it's like, but see, the other part of basically of my religious belief is like, God is not somebody else, right? Like, pantheism is freaking amazing. I mean, and you can connect it. You can go, whatever. Got that. That's why am I on Yahoo? At least also knows about Wikipedia, so that's like the saving grace. Although it's opening all these double anyway. But yeah, pantheism. There's also. This used to be they actually nerfed this Wikipedia article, I want to say. This Wikipedia article used to be like so long and incorporate so many things. It's like super fucked up. But anyway, from the standpoint of shit like this, which I think is very cool, like it's actually blasphemous to say that God does not author sin, basically. Because it's like you're saying there's something in this universe God didn't do, like, or that if God had the ability to do something, God wouldn't do it. And I guess it's just a part of a larger creator-creation distinction because, like, Christians think God is somebody else, right? Christians think God is like a person who's like elsewhere. And I don't agree. But I mean, you'll see me fuck with, let's pull out the big guns, right? You can go solipsism. So imagine, if you will, this is like, in terms of like where I'm coming from, and you want to compare this to like Julius Evola and the perennial philosophy. Like imagine combining solipsism with pansyncretism, which I guess is a form of perennial philosophy. Oh, and then I also love skepticism. I think skepticism is awesome. This right here, Pyrrhonism. It's again rejecting dogma. So it's like it's the connection between believing something, like I'm committed to believing something, whatever the fuck that means, and being overly attached to like a specific way of using words. I don't know if cognitive rigidity probably doesn't have. It should have a Wikipedia page, but it doesn't. But normalcy bias does, right? It's the kind of thing. This is exactly what Pyro is trying to help you with, right? Because it's like you get all used to how things are, and you think like, oh, well, of course we know what men and women are, blending in, like, but not just people like that. Also, people like, of course we know what racism is. It's prejudice plus power, or like, of course we know what transgender people are. They're valid. Like, it's like, I'm not saying woe to any of those people. I'm not like, everybody is valid, I guess I should say. The point is just like, why are you valid? Is it because like there's a certain identity that you do fall into and like you believe it and it's true and everybody else should like agree with you and everything like that? Which is the problem with that is that it's setting up a dogma, right? And so I'm not pulling a Jordan Peterson, right? And just being like, I just want to, be mean to your dogmas just to be mean, basically. Like, and he claimed, like, I like to call everybody they because it's basically saying I don't believe in men and women. So everybody's they, right? Because everybody's agender, right? So Jordan Peterson, they, try to act like, there's like a larger sense of like, we're not just being dicks, like we're saving the world for Western civilization or whatever. But I just don't take that seriously whatsoever. And so you're basically just setting up dogma. I would say it's more so you're setting up social, like that but then we're already getting into more of my background materials. So if you look at the Metonymy Economy, I can't tell if I'm doing really well or really badly, by the way. Probably a mix of both. Wait, what? I have an internal server error for one of my documents. That's like not allowed. Let's see. Does that work? Okay, cool. Okay, it actually doesn't matter. Okay, so what part of this? Oh. Yeah, this is basically it. So how does this connect to what I was just talking about? Dogma, basically. So this is something I'm talking about in the Metonymy Economy. I'm talking about Percy Shelley. Percy Shelley is also talking about this sort of idea of ossification. Let's see. Yeah. It's something about here. Okay, the major danger of such memorable utterances, whether famous poems or scientific theories, is their making possible unthinking repetition, which propagates deleterious and tenaciously self-reducing and radicalizing social norms. The integral thoughts the epic poet delivers to listeners, expressing and taxonomizing relations of things, undergo a process of indifferentiation and equivocation, coming to be signs for portions or classes of thoughts. Such semiotic degeneration constitutes the undoing of the epic poet's work and its mobilization against itself in the habits and customary restrictions left over absent continued sagacious influence. So this is where you can accuse me of being like anti-KW because it's like, Adam, what the fuck are you talking about? And I would be like, first of all, my name is AI. Okay. I'm evoking my name is Trinity there. I just decided from the Matrix Resurrections. Oh, also, like, there's no chance. Oh, I am live somewhere. There's no chance anybody's, like, watching me right now, right? Yeah. That would be too much to ask. I guess you're supposed to, like, advertise, but that's okay. So basically, like, people come up with important shit to say. E equals MC squared is a good example because like E equals MC squared is about something in particular. Like it's a, anyway, I'm losing confidence. I gotta stop.